My name's William Chernoff, and today on the Rhythm Changes podcast, I present my conversation with Ilhan Saferali. Ilhan is at the center of what I consider to be Vancouver jazz Gen Z culture. He's a trumpet player, piano player, event promoter, graphic designer, and beat maker, among many other things, and he's one of the most well-connected and driven young musicians I know in this city. Looking back on 2020, I haven't had the pleasure of seeing Ilhan nearly as often as I would have expected, so we caught up for a Zoom conversation. Please enjoy our chat. So, Ilhan, I'd love to begin with some context around Vancouver jazz in general. I thought a solid place to begin would be you describing the Memorial Jazz Space. What was the Memorial Jazz Space?
It's like one of those things that like words can't describe. It was like essentially this jazz club that sold frozen pizza bagels out of a microwave in the back and just had like tons of people crammed into this loft, like this over 100-year-old loft in East Hastings, where like young people would just go to listen to young people play jazz. And I think that was the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. Like just having organized that. That has to be like some of my most fond memories. I will never forget that. Like that had to be the coolest thing I've ever done, really. It was just this makeshift jazz bar that somehow people kept finding out about. And for a while it was only through word of mouth and like Facebook events, and people came and people played music, and it was the most pure form I've felt here in Vancouver. I've seen of like a sharing of love and passion for this music, because people didn't come for the food, people didn't come for the drinks, people obviously didn't come for the ambiance or vibe. I mean, it was like a freaking loft in the middle of nowhere. People just came for the music and to have a great time. Coolest thing ever.
What did it feel like and look like when you walked in?
I mean, when I walked in, when I first saw the space, when I first saw the spot, I was like, why isn't this a jazz club? This is perfect for one. It felt, I mean, when things were going regularly, it felt like the coolest thing ever. I mean, I'd get a ride from my dad usually. I'd show up an hour early, and I would come in. I would open up. First thing I do, turn the heaters on, set the tables. Stock the fridge with water. Like literally anything a usual owner of a small business would do. I'd set up. Do the lights. Band would load in. Do sound check. About half an hour after, we'd start playing. Yeah.
You released a collective trio EP in 2019, and you crossed this group over into several venues for indie pop and rock music in Vancouver, and I find that rare and impressive in this community. What is the story of this group?
So, Raf, Julian, and I are friends. We've been playing together since we were in high school, and we were playing together at the VSO School of Music. That's where we met, in the big band program they had there, and we just shared a mutual love of music and passion for playing jazz. And so we realized that we connect well and we play well together. And then we just started this group, and then we were looking for places to play. And I mean, this kind of music, hard to get. I mean, it's hard for any young musician to get booked at a place like Frankie's or Tangent, for good reason, because the standard of playing is very high. To go into Frankie's, really need to know what you're doing, and we're just there. We're just not there yet. So I had played in like an indie band. Well, it was more like a funk band that was on the indie scene in Vancouver, and so I knew all the people booking, and I'd played at the venues before. And I was like, oh, let's just do it. I mean, this music's cool. Why not? Like, let's just do it. And people really liked it. And so, we were like playing with Club Sofa and stuff. And like, we were just playing jazz. It was funny. Like, we had a show one time. I think like, I don't know who else we played with. Like we opened for Club Sofa once. And yeah, so the demographic of people there was like not jazz listeners per se, but I mean it was cool. It was fun.
I started to play music because of a strong community of high school classmates and because of my band teachers. What were the social factors that supported your development as a jazz musician?
The VSO School of Music, their programs there that they had really fostered a love for and a love and a passion for sharing music with others. Um, because at my high school that I grew up, I didn't like the high school that I grew up in. I didn't have a lot of peers that shared that love. Like that, it wasn't like NW where you went or KSS. It wasn't like that. I was kind of the only one. I had a buddy who was like me as well. But to get to know other young musicians similar to me in age, who shared a passion for the music was mostly through the VSO. I don't think I would be continue to be playing music if it wasn't for them. Really, like that organization, that school. Um, I think I owe really everything to the program there. And the summer camps. That's where I started meeting friends. Was in the summer camps they have. It was a week or 2 weeks. I started off doing a week, and then I gradually progressed to doing 2 weeks, and then I was a TA a couple years ago. So yeah, I mean that's really the biggest thing I can say.
If we double click on that and go deeper into it, I agree that one of the factors for me was going to the 2010 Douglas College Summer Jazz Intensive. Go into a little bit more about this kind of summer program for those who aren't initiated in it and what it offers people like you and me who are learning jazz.
So I did Douglas as well. I did the Douglas summer camp. I met some of my greatest friends there. I met my first girlfriend at Douglas. I met Brad Turner there for the first time, which was really an important kind of stepping stone in like my musical education. And um, I'm a huge fan of Brad, and he's someone that I look up to immensely, and an incredible role model for me. And just like having to spend a week with him, um, kind of showing everyone, just seeing him play really like there was the faculty concerts and just seeing him play and do his thing and talk about music was like, I mean, I was 14. I was super in my head. I don't think I understood much of what he was saying at the time, but I took notes. And now when I look back at them, I really understand what he was talking about. And so for anyone who hasn't done a camp like that, pretty much what entails of it is like it's like usually a week or 2 weeks. I mean, 2 weeks is a stretch. I've done 2 week ones, but typically a week, depending on your age group. I mean, Douglas was more geared towards younger musicians. And you have your workshop. What would you call it, like a clinic? I don't know, master class of your own instrument that everyone who plays your instrument is with the teacher. For me, it was broad because I was on trumpet. You have a combo. What else? You got improv workshops, usually faculty concerts where the faculty of the camp plays for you. And it was a similar thing at VSO as well. It was almost the same thing, except I was in a big band at the VSO as well, where I started playing in big bands. Um, so yeah, that's typically what a typical jazz summer camp in BC entails. I haven't done too many other ones here. Like I know there's the one in IMC or something like that. And then Phil Dwyer had one on the island, which was like a cooking, culinary, and jazz one. But I'm assuming that those are similar. And it's a great way for young musicians like to start getting into it. I like encourage any high school musician or even young. I was younger when I started. I wasn't even in high school yet, but any younger musician who's like kind of getting into jazz and is like, oh, I really like this. Go do one of those summer camps. Like it's totally worth it. Um, and it really propels you forward. Like those like 1 weeks. I feel like those short week spans of time, like those short spans of time throughout a week. I think I've grown more and learned more in those than I have like over months.
Did you also take private lessons with Brad?
Brad and I have done a few lessons. Yeah, I mean he's an incredibly busy guy. As anyone probably knows who knows Brad, he's a very busy guy, and he's been generous enough to give me some lessons throughout my high school years a couple times. Um, which I'm super grateful for. Yeah, I really enjoy working with Brad and just listening to him to talk about music, and he gives great advice.
You're a multi instrumentalist, but I discovered your trumpet playing first in this community. Any thoughts to share on playing piano in your post secondary education beyond just trumpet?
Yeah, I mean, I love both and hate both at the same time. It's a love-hate relationship. Any musician knows that, they have a love-hate relationship with their instrument. Playing the piano is something like I've played the piano since I was young, like a lot of people, but I just love playing I just love the piano and how it works and how I love piano. I love trumpet as well, but I'm like very intrigued about the intricacies of piano playing and the technique of playing the piano, and playing the piano helps me see things in my head when playing the trumpet, which I didn't really realize up until a couple years ago. Um, because like when I'm improvising, like a lot of the time I just see like the voicings or like the chords in my head, and I think like horizontally, that because that's how I see it like written out on paper, and like that's kind of how I see it on a keyboard. But through talking with other trumpet players, I've come to realize that like who don't play piano like have nothing to go by when they're improvising. So I have no idea how they think, like at all. Like through describing other, like from hearing other trumpet players describe how they improvise, I have no idea how that works. I'm like, really? So I wouldn't say I think like a trumpet player, improvising wise. I think more so like a piano player, and I see the piano, which I think I can relate to Brad on that front, since he started piano first, and he's also a astounding piano player. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and I love playing piano post like in my post secondary education. I love piano lessons. I didn't want to stop that.
Can you come back to this fascinating idea of horizontal and vertical thinking about music and about seeing something in your head while you're playing? I don't think a lot of non musicians will know about that.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about music in your head, especially improvising, everyone sees it differently. But I think the fact that I learned how to play piano first, and I visually see intervals. I visually, because you don't see an interval when you're playing the trumpet. There isn't, like you're pressing buttons down on a piece of plumbing. Like there's no visual there. That's all in your head. How you see intervals, how you see chords built up. So people who don't really play piano or haven't really looked at a keyboard or played around with the piano don't like see the spacing in between the chords the same. And so when I'm playing trumpet, I'm like, oh yeah, like I see the intervals in my head. Like I can see the divisions and the spaces between the notes differently than someone who's never seen that before. So I think that is just a different way of thinking, and it I think it's an advantage. I think it's a cool thing to know how to do. I think that's why everyone should learn how to play the piano. It's because once you see those intervals that way, it becomes so much easier. And then guitarists think differently. Like I was talking to my teacher at McGill, Jean-Michel Pilk, about this, who's a fantastic pianist, by the way. And we were both like, yeah, I don't know how guitar works. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, it's completely different. Like, the layout off of a fretboard, and then these strings tuned in fourths. Like, that's hard. That is hard. I can't do that. I can see a keyboard. This is a low note. If you keep going up, it just keeps going up until a high note. These are the intervals. You go up by three, up by four. These are like I can understand that. So I would be interested to talk to a guitarist who plays trumpet and see how they think. And maybe that's something. I mean, I've fiddled around with the guitar before. I could probably get by on like on a jam session, a rock jam session or something like that. Like I know the bar chords and stuff, but I think something later down the line when I have some more free time to experiment musically would be to pick up guitar more in depthly and just figure out how the fretboard system works. I think it would kind of open up some musical doors for me and for anyone really. who's played piano and another instrument.
I've heard that you have a certain thing about playing the jazz standard Tangerine in the key of E flat major. What is this about?
um, that's okay. So is that usually an F? Is that tune usually an F? Because I think Dexter plays it in F. I could be wrong, or F or G or something like that. I played it in E flat, because Chet played it in E flat, so that's the key I learned it in. And I think long time ago I might have lifted some of that solo, so I was just playing it in E flat. And then all my friends were playing it in E flat too because I showed them the record, or they have made. I think I was showing some people that record. She Was Too Good to Me, Chet Baker, fantastic Chet Baker record. Um, and so, or they found it. I don't know. Somehow, a lot of my friends came across the same record and the same tune. That tune is beautiful how they play it, and so we were all just playing it in E flat, and that's how it came along. Um, but also through moving to Montreal with my friends who are from New York and Boston, when we play that tune, we also play it in E flat. So I mean, I should really learn that tune in other keys. But yeah, that's just from hearing Chet play it, and I went through a huge Chet phase when I was in like 10th grade. That's like all I listened to and all I wanted to sound like. So I guess just through listening to Chet, I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're playing this in E flat now. It sounds pretty in E flat too. I like the way it sounds in E flat.
I'm curious to go out of the deep music side for a second. Your thoughts on the state of online platforms. This includes social media, but also games and any other ways to communicate. So, at this time, for you and your professional network, what are the most important of these digital places to be in?
Every time I meet a jazz musician like around my age or like in my like a peer and they don't have Facebook, I'm like, yo, dude, you gotta get on Facebook because I've gotten so many gigs just through Facebook messages, or like I've networked through Facebook. I have got like I've found work through Facebook. I've given other people work through Facebook. I've like met people through Facebook. I've you like you just people have seen gigs that I've done with other people or my own gigs through Facebook. Um, I don't know why that is, but I remember like when I started high school, like my buddy David Hodgson was like, "Yo, you got to get on Facebook. Do you have Facebook?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Get Facebook." So he's the one who made me download it. And so like that's how it kind of started. I think Facebook's really important for all jazz musicians. I should say really important. I don't think any social media should be necessary. I don't think it should be necessary in any artist or creatives, toolbox. I think it helps like if you want to get gigs and stuff and you want to put yourself out there. But if that's not your main goal, I don't think it's necessary at all. I think at times it can be detrimental, depending on what kind of person you are. But I would say, Facebook. I know a lot of people do like the Instagram thing. I've been like really inactive on my Instagram music account for a while, and my Instagram Facebook, like, and my music account on Facebook for a while, just because like I don't really know what I'm doing with it. People have like very very strategic ways of how they do their music accounts on social media, and like, oh, I'm gonna post a lift, or I'm gonna put myself out there, and I don't really know what I'm doing honestly. And so I just decided better to do nothing at all. I don't need to do anything right now with that. That might change in a couple of years when I need to be marketing myself. But I'm not in that and at that point yet in my career where I'm like need to be hammering stuff out on social media. But as terms of like other platforms go, I think like the internet can be a good place. I mean, like I love playing games with friends online when I can't see them, especially during like March, like April when we were at the during the stay at home order. Like I had nothing to do, I couldn't see friends, so we would just like play games online. And that can be such a fun thing to do, just to connect with friends that way. But at the same time, I think that like social media in general or other online platforms can be harmful. One, overusage of it, which I'm guilty of. I think almost a lot of people are guilty of unless they're strong enough to completely delete the app itself or like set timers on how long they use the app a day. But I think just in how we portray ourselves over social media, I'm starting to like care less about what other people think of me on social media. And so like I'll just post something because I like it. I think it looks cool, or I think it's funny. Like, I don't. I think people at times, especially younger people, can feel like very pressured to have a certain image on social media, which is like really unfortunate, you know? Like that really I really wish that that didn't have to happen. I wish like, people could it's weird. I wish like now we're getting completely off topic, but I wish we could just see each other for who we are and who we are as people, not who our walls are on a phone, because truly who we are as people are not reflected through a phone screen. I guess that's my outlook. It can be great, and I think it's a great tool for everyone. The internet can be a great tool, learning tool, social tool, but it can be harmful, and I think we should all take a step back at times and look at our usage on social media or on online platforms and start to analyze how we use it and who we are on these platforms.
I interviewed a few teenage music students recently about a recording project, and many of them said that listening back to their work was unpleasant because they felt that they had gained some instrumental technique since they recorded it. And one student called it, quote, noticing deficiencies in their playing. But they had recorded this project only a couple months ago. So, any thoughts on being young and hearing your own technique change rapidly like that?
I can definitely hear sometimes the differences, like, oh, look, I'm improving. Like, oh, I hear something different here. But I think Brad was the one who told me record yourself, listen back to it, and be very critical about your own playing. Like that's the best teacher there. Like you are your best teacher. Like listen to it. And I think like something he told me was like, don't listen back and be like, oh, I sound pretty good there. Like listen back to it and be like, boom, this is where I need to work on this part here. Like this is where I screwed up. This is where I need to work on. Um, and like if you spent like 8 months just playing and recording yourself every day and writing down like time codes on where you think you could work on and then working on that, then doing another take, working on that. You know how rapidly someone would improve? Like I don't have the personal willpower and energy to do that. I probably should. I should do that more because I could probably improve way faster if I did that. But I think like listening back and analyzing your own playing is like the most educational thing you can do. But the problem is like some people have performance anxiety. I have like recording anxiety. Like I don't care about playing in front of people. Like I'm totally comfortable with that. I'm usually not nervous or scared. Minus a few exceptions, but man, I can't do it. I'm so scared of recording, man. That is like the scariest thing for me is like studio sessions and stuff. Like even my recording my university audition tapes, I can't remember how many takes I took. I was like 3 tunes, and I must have taken like, I don't know. I took a lot of takes of each tune before I was like, okay, okay. I remember after you take, I was like, no, we're doing it again. Or we like stop halfway. I'm like, nah, we got to do it again. So yeah, but recording and hearing yourself back and learning from that is important.
So, is it a natural thing for young musicians to have this recording anxiety and avoid committing their playing to a project intended for release and maybe delay that until a later age? Any more thoughts on that?
I haven't talked to anyone about that. I don't know anyone who has recording anxiety, or at least I haven't heard from anyone. Like no one has expressed that to me that I know of yet. Uh, but I think like as far as committing to projects goes, I think there becomes a certain point in one's musical maturity when they feel comfortable to represent themselves as an artist. And I'm definitely not there yet. But there are people who my age who are definitely there. I mean, like tons of them. I mean, Joey Alexander, how young is that guy? He must be like my age now, maybe like a couple years old. That guy is like not just a great young player. There's tons of young players out there who will play circles around me and any adult musician. But Joey is like he's got a sound. Like he is identifiable. I love his playing, man. I love Joey's writing and his playing, and so you can play me a record of Joey, and like usually instantly I'll be able to like Joey, because he's mature, man. Like he's got a sound, he's got a style, and he's an artist. Like he's not just a great player, but he's a great artist musically. And so I think that in everyone's musical career there becomes a point where they're technically proficient, they're musically proficient, and it starts becoming more about, how do I want to represent myself? And I'm like so light years away from this. Like sometimes I think about like, oh, when would I be ready to release like my own project? And I'm like, I every single year I get older, it becomes like a year away. So yeah, I think it's just about where you are, you know, maturity wise. I still think that sometimes I'm speaking jazz like a second grader. I probably am too. Jazz is a language, and there's things about this language that you gotta know. And like as soon as I think I'm like getting more proficient, there's like I start learning more stuff, and I'm like, well, and that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of this language. It's like you can't like the masters are fluent, and us as students, it's like we keep finding things before we become really fluent. And I'm sure the people who are fluent are still learning. That's the great thing about jazz. But I think it's a matter of fluency in this language. I think other music genres can be a little bit different. I mean, I don't want to say like pop music per se, because that just sounds pretentious and snobby, because I love pop music. But I think the system of language and mentorship, fellowship, culture, and community is a lot different. Jazz is very unique in that way. And so I think that when I do release my own project as an artist, I want to be like way further in my knowledge of the language, first of all. I want to be more proficient in just my knowledge of life. I mean, like I'm a kid, right? I don't know much about life yet, or so what I have to say isn't really that interesting at this moment. So I think that when I do release a project as an artist, I want to have more experience musically, personally.
When you increase your focus and start spending lots of time on your musical development, what happens in your social life day to day?
Yeah. There was a time where I was like doing nothing but waking up, practicing, and going to sleep and repeating. I did nothing. I would wake up, I would start practicing till like maybe midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and then go to bed and do the same thing. I mean, that's great, but I was very like closed off from a lot of things. I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't listening to my body. I wasn't listening to people around me. I was not getting fresh air. I was not getting exercise. I was not eating almost at all, really. So it became self improvement and self detriment at the same time. And so I feel like a mixture of both is super necessary. And I find that if I like go, I mean, we live in the most beautiful place on planet Earth. If I go for a walk out here in the Pacific Northwest, um, in the forest or by the water, I feel way more inspired and ready to play music. When I get up in the morning and I go to the gym, I have my breakfast or coffee, and I come back, I'm much more ready to play music. When I was doing that, I was like in my pajamas all day. Like I literally didn't get changed at all. I think it's finding a balance. I think I progressed really quickly throughout that time though, don't get me wrong. But I was also like I don't know how efficiently I was practicing, because there's a thing about practicing efficiently and effectively and practicing for a long time. I think that like listening to music, like I listen to music in the car. That's how I listen to most of my records. Just driving around with my dad. Learning how to sing or scat solos just like by listening to them when you put your headphones on. Um, Going out to feel artistic, going to watch live music. That is all practicing, and you are improving as a musician that way. It's not always 9 to 5 on the scale grind, which is so important, by the way. I'm not dissing scales and technique and exercises like that at all, but I'm saying like there are other parts to being a musician too. And other parts of being a musician are also being a good person, a good friend. That is part of being a good musician too. You know, being a good musician isn't always necessarily about, your technical development, because no one is gonna want to hire you if you are a jerk. No one's gonna like music is a very raw emotional thing, especially playing jazz music. Like you are so vulnerable up there playing with other people, especially on a bandstand. You are literally giving your most vulnerable self to everyone, to your bandmates, to the audience. You have to do your own emotional and personal work too to really be a great musician. I definitely would say if anyone's trying to figure out their practicing, plan out what you're going to practice throughout the day, you know? I usually allocate an amount of time like I'm going to do a few hours of this on the piano, I'm going to do a few hours of this on trumpet. I'm going to go to the gym this morning and I'm going to go tonight. I'll go see a friend. I'll go call a friend. I'll go call, whatever. I'm going to go grab a coffee. That way you have a really good, I like to think I'm striving towards a better balance of work and life.
I'm wondering if you aspire to be a jazz educator or have any other thoughts on teaching and learning in addition to your great insight so far here.
I love teaching, man. I teach I privately, like I have a couple students, and I love it. I love it. I don't know much yet. I'm still like really learning. I love just passing whatever I have on, and like I love the camaraderie of jazz music, especially with like my friends who are not super egotistical and like have egomaniacs. Like, oh man, I'm not gonna show you my licks. Like I love just talking to my friends about different things in this music, and they teach me stuff and I learn and I teach them stuff, and like even just teaching students, it is like so rewarding, and it's just fun for me. I love to teach. I really do. And I one day I would like love to teach. Like I'd love to teach at the VSO School of Music one day. That's where I grew up learning how to play jazz, and I still take lessons there with Miles Black, who is like probably one of my favorite human beings in this entire planet. And so just having that relationship with him since I was like maybe 10 or 11, I must have been 11 when I started my relationship, and I'm 18 now. And like just I want to have that relationship with someone else because I feel like I owe so much to him and to the faculty there, that I kind of want to eventually, when I'm at that level, give back and spread that knowledge and love and passion.
Ilhan, I've got a few more questions here. Along with many other things, you do music cover art and event poster design. Any experiences you're down to share about doing that design work so far?
Yeah, I mean, I just really like art. I took an art course, and I think it started when I like was taking photography in high school, and then I took a film course and then a visual art course. I really like album covers. I don't know why. Like in my I don't have like I'm at my parents' house right now, but in my place in Montreal, I have some like pictures and like artwork of jazz albums, and I think it can if you're into it, don't force it on yourself if you're not really hip to that and that's not what you're into. But if you are like interested in it, it's a really nice thing to do. I did the cover art for that Seamus Blake and Brad Turner live album that was released on Cellar a couple months ago, a while back now, which was like so cool. And Corey asked me to do that. I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe I do it. Like this is so cool. And I did a lot of drafts for that one. And as like a DIY musician or like as a freelancer, especially now, it's like kind of it's a good thing to know how to do, just to help market yourself and to help put stuff out there. It's a good skill to have. So like I mostly use like Spark Post, like Adobe Spark Post on my phone. I used to have access to Photoshop with my high school, like because we got with the classes I was taking, we got free access to it, but I don't have that anymore. So I have a lot of other music related expenses. I'm not super ready yet to drop some money on Photoshop, but maybe down the line once I get more into it and start taking a course in it or something, maybe I will. I did the Photoshop thing and I learned how to use it for a while.
I'd love to touch on challenges, but go beyond COVID. What are the main things that you and the young music professionals you know struggle with?
Everyone's struggles can be different, and I think are different. I think my personal struggles compared to what my friends' personal struggles are musically, personally, emotionally, creatively, artistically are completely different. I know I struggle a lot just with myself, and I'm constantly learning to better live with myself, better treat myself, work harder. I can tend to get into these really just lazy moods, especially with COVID, like, and being away from home and not being non-productive and motivation. And I could go on about things that I struggle with, but I would say that, as a young musician right now, it's very hard to stay motivated and to feel like what we are all doing is for a greater purpose, because we can't see it right now. It's non-existent. We're very lucky here in BC that we have some venues open that are allowing that for that to happen. But I think a struggle that I had was just my ego. I'm now realizing that ego is just a result of your own insecurities. That's what it is. It's fear of your own insecurities. And so I guess for better words, something that I have worked a lot in myself over the past little while, a couple of years, is to surrender my insecurities and surrender that ego that I had, and maybe at times still have, and just focus on music and what it means to play music. Like I don't think I really realized before how beautiful this thing playing music is that we have. Like, it's a privilege, it's a gift, it's something bigger than all of us. Sharing music with each other, with others, is something much bigger than all of us, So just learning about this purpose and learning about this amazing thing, what music is, I think that's something that I'm working towards.
This might have happened when you started your semester at McGill or when you auditioned or beforehand, but tell me about how it felt as you introduced yourself to the city of Montreal.
I felt right at home. I love Montreal. Yeah, I think me and Montreal go along together very well. I have a huge passion for coffee. That's like my big thing aside from music, and so never a lack of that in Montreal. I just love the architecture. I'm huge on architecture. I love architecture. That, just the city itself, the culture, the vibrations, the scenery, the language, the food. Oh my God, bagels are so good. The coffee's so good. It's amazing, man. I love it. I don't think I could. My parents couldn't fly with me to Montreal, obviously with COVID and stuff. So, I mean, I literally, my parents dropped me off at the airport, and I just flew there, got in, and just started living right away, which is pretty unusual. But I did it, and I don't think it could have been easier.
I intend to make this the last question for every musician I talk to, and that's for you to tell me about one of the funniest people you've been on a bandstand with.
So I can say hands down, the funniest guy, the most. I mean, I've played with him. He was actually the drummer on my audition at McGill. His name is Daniel Verdecchia. He is Italian. He is a third year drummer at McGill, I believe. He's a little bit older, but he's in his third year. And this guy is like just the funniest guy I've ever met for the stupidest reasons. I can't describe this to you if you've never met him, but he is just, I can't give a specific example. Like, you need to talk to this guy, but he's just like hands down the funniest human being I've ever met in my entire life, and the one of the most fantastic drummers I've ever played with. He is incredible. I've done recording sessions with him before. He played on my audition. I love sharing music with him. He is a phenomenal person, phenomenal guy, phenomenal drummer, very loving human being. When you are a good person and you create, friendships through music, it'll swing harder. It'll swing harder, I guarantee you. Really. When I play music with him, I feel great, and it's just the sense of camaraderie, and because he's such a jokester and he pulls jokes all the time, it's like you can never have a serious conversation with this guy. Um, so not really. I mean, a lot of the time we joke around. So the music lends itself to humor and happiness, and comedy and just great fun times. I actually did a great recording session with him, one of my longtime good friends, Ben Boardman, who's a fantastic bass player. So it was that trio with this fantastic singer named Katie George, who is originally from Calgary, and she had moved to Toronto for undergrad at the fantastic program at Humber College, and now was doing her master's. And she's a great friend, great mentor to me, really great person, great human being, and honestly, I can confidently say one of the best musicians I've ever worked with in my life. And so we did this session together, and it was so much. I mean, I wish I could share these audio files with you. Unfortunately, because it was recorded at McGill by students and engineers, I can't release this. I wish I could, but I just legally I can't release it. But it was just such a fun session. It was, I mean, we didn't lock in all the time because distance, right, with COVID. We were very far apart, which is weird, but the friendship, the camaraderie, and the energy just kind of kept us swinging for a while. And Katie sounded, there's a little clip of it on her Instagram, actually. But yeah, she sounded insane. She's a fantastic, wonderful musician.
I think that's a great place to wrap. Ilhan, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
If you like this podcast, subscribe to get more from wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you really like this kind of thing, visit rhythmchanges.ca and check out our music journalism serving Metro Vancouver, BC. Here's how you can support what we do. Visit patreon.com/rhythmchanges or click the support button from the rhythmchanges.ca homepage, or tell all your friends about this podcast and what we do. Rhythm Changes is a Chernoff Music production.